mother. Oh my God, who did this to you? What is going on?
Hey Mom, it's me. No need to worry, you're totally safe now.
He thought it was just another ordinary day, until he came home unannounced. What he found left him frozen in shock. His own mother, abandoned in the pouring rain by the nurse he trusted most. But just when he thought things couldn't get any worse, he discovered a secret about the nurse that shook him to the core. What she had been hiding all along was far more dangerous than leaving his mother in the rain. A betrayal so cruel, it will make you question everything about trust and care. Before we dive into the story, don't forget to subscribe. Like and share this story to your loved ones. Stay with me, because the truth you're about to hear changes everything. And this story might save someone you love. James had always been close to his mother, Margaret. Growing up, she was the rock of his world, the woman who balanced warmth with discipline, love with wisdom. Now, as a young man, he had left for college and then work abroad, leaving his mother in her cozy home with the assistance of a caregiver. Margaret, once independent and full of life, had been struggling with mobility issues and memory lapses, so hiring a nurse seemed like the only option. Helena, the nurse, came highly recommended, boasting flawless references and decades of experience. Her smile was reassuring, her words measured and comforting. But there had always been a subtle unease in James's heart, a nagging feeling he couldn't quite place. It was the kind of instinct that whispered warnings in moments of quiet, easily ignored when life was busy and responsibility weighed heavily. That fateful day, James decided to return home unexpectedly. He wanted to surprise his mother, share stories of his life abroad, and feel the comfort of family again. But as he drove up the familiar lane to their home, the sky darkened ominously and a sudden sharp rain began to fall. The weather seemed almost symbolic, a mirror of the storm he was about to uncover. When he reached the front of the house, his heart skipped a beat. The door was ajar, rainwater dripping onto the welcome mat, and the world felt disturbingly silent. James stepped inside cautiously, calling out for his mother, expecting the usual warmth of her voice. The emptiness was chilling. Every step echoed in the hallway, amplifying the tension. Then from the corner of his eye, he noticed movement outside. Racing to the door, he saw a horrifying sight. His mother, frail and soaked, abandoned in the rain, shivering uncontrollably. His heart stopped. How could Helena, the seemingly perfect caregiver, allow this? Panic surged, adrenaline coursed, and James's instincts kicked into overdrive. He ran into the rain, scooping Margaret into his arms, feeling the shock of cold water and betrayal in every second. Questions flooded his mind. Why had she been left like this? Where was Helena? And most importantly, was this just negligence or something far more sinister? The storm outside mirrored the chaos in his heart, and James realized in that moment that his mother's safety had been compromised in ways he could never have imagined. Once inside, James wrapped Margaret in towels and blankets, trying to soothe her trembling body and racing thoughts. She was silent at first, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and embarrassment. Slowly, through chattering teeth, she began to speak. She told James about minor incidents he had never noticed, small but unsettling occurrences that now, in hindsight, seemed sinister. Medications had been mismanaged, food altered or withheld, and bills appeared to be disappearing without explanation. Margaret had been too polite, too trusting, too afraid to question Helena directly. The woman who had once seemed like an angel had gradually transformed into a shadow of danger in their home. James listened, heart pounding, piecing together fragments of a puzzle that now painted a horrifying picture. Each detail added weight to a growing suspicion. Helena was not just careless. She had been exploiting his mother. The anger and fear gnawed at James, but alongside it grew a determination. He realized that inaction could lead to irreparable harm. Every day his mother had spent alone with Helena had been a gamble, and the stakes were terrifyingly high. The betrayal cut deeper because Helena had woven herself into their lives so seamlessly, gaining trust through charm, warmth, and meticulous attention to detail. It was a calculated act, a predatory manipulation that preyed on vulnerability, kindness, and love. James now knew that instincts are rarely wrong, and the subtle warning signs he had ignored were screaming truths. The discovery of these first clues marked the beginning of a quest, not just for justice, but for understanding, closure, and protection. It was clear that Helena's deception went beyond a single incident. It was a pattern of manipulation designed to isolate, exploit, and control. James's mind raced, considering every conversation, every act, every smile from Helena in the past months, trying to identify the threads of the lie she had spun. The realization was chilling. This was not an accident. Margaret's trust had been weaponized against her, and James felt the urgent need to unravel the extent of Helena's betrayal before more damage could be done. Determined to uncover the full extent of the danger, James began investigating Helena's past. He discovered that she had a history of changing jobs abruptly, leaving behind trails of financial irregularities and suspicious behavior in the household she had served. Her references, glowing on paper, were often fabricated or provided by individuals who had themselves been involved in deceptive practices. James's heart sank as he realized the magnitude of what his mother had been exposed to. He began combing through financial statements, prescriptions, and appointment logs, searching for anomalies. Every discovery seemed to reveal a deeper layer of Helena's deception: missing checks, altered invoices, and even falsified medical records. The nurse who had seemed so dedicated was systematically exploiting his mother, eroding her independence and trust. But it wasn't just the financial betrayal that stung. It was the emotional manipulation. Helena had convinced Margaret that she needed her, subtly isolating her from friends and family, creating dependence under the guise of care. James felt a surge of anger, guilt, and resolve. He had trusted the system, the references, the apparent professionalism of a caregiver. And now he understood that predators often hide behind perfection, charm, and an air of reliability. The urgency of action became clear. He needed to secure his mother, expose Helena, and ensure that no one else could fall victim to her schemes. This realization marked a turning point. James was no longer merely a son confronting negligence. He was an investigator, a protector, and a strategist navigating a web of deceit that threatened his mother's safety, finances, and dignity. The moment of confrontation was inevitable. James called Helena, pretending ignorance, requesting she come to the house to explain some discrepancies. When she arrived, calm and composed as always, James kept his emotions in check, observing her every movement, every expression. Margaret, sitting quietly, watched as James probed with carefully crafted questions, pressing for explanations that would reveal inconsistencies. Helena, sensing pressure, attempted deflection, offering excuses, and redirecting attention to minor mistakes she could plausibly explain. But James was meticulous. He confronted her with financial records, appointment logs, and medication discrepancies. The tension was palpable, a charged silence thickening the room. Finally, under the weight of evidence, Helena faltered. Her facade cracked, and the truth emerged. She had been systematically exploiting Margaret for personal gain. She had manipulated schedules, mismanaged finances, and intentionally isolated Margaret from her support network. The revelation was both horrifying and cathartic. James felt a mix of anger, relief, and empowerment. Helena's deception had been unmasked, but the emotional scars remained. Margaret's trust had been shattered, and James understood the painstaking journey ahead: to restore safety, rebuild trust, and reclaim autonomy for his mother. The confrontation was only the beginning of recovery. It was a decisive step in reclaiming control over a home that had been infiltrated by betrayal. The aftermath of the confrontation was emotionally overwhelming. Margaret, previously confident and composed, now grappled with a mixture of shame, fear, and anger. She struggled to reconcile the woman she had welcomed into her home with the betrayal she had endured. James, patient yet firm, provided constant support, gently guiding her through the process of understanding, forgiving herself for trusting, and regaining control over her environment. They implemented new protocols, documenting finances, securing medications, and limiting access to anyone not verified through rigorous checks. Margaret's resilience began to shine through, tempered by caution and strengthened by James's unwavering presence. This period of recovery revealed deeper lessons about human vulnerability, the subtlety of manipulation, and the importance of vigilance. Every detail of Helena's behavior, once overlooked, was now a critical learning point. Together, mother and son navigated the delicate balance between independence and protection, empathy and skepticism. This emotional journey underscored a universal truth. Trust, while essential, must coexist with accountability and awareness. In facing betrayal, they discovered strength, clarity, and an unbreakable bond forged in the crucible of adversity. Realizing that their story could serve as a vital warning, James began sharing their experience with friends, neighbors, and local community groups. He emphasized practical strategies, independently verifying caregivers' references, monitoring finances, observing subtle behavioral patterns, and maintaining open communication with elderly loved ones. The response was immediate. Families recounted similar experiences, often minor but potentially disastrous, and sought guidance on how to prevent abuse. James realized the broader impact of their ordeal. By transforming personal trauma into a communal resource, he helped establish a network of vigilance and awareness. Communities began to understand that predators like Helena exploit trust systematically, often going unnoticed until significant harm occurs. The collective knowledge and shared experiences created a protective environment, reinforcing the necessity of proactive engagement in elderly care. James's advocacy highlighted that safeguarding loved ones extends beyond personal vigilance. It requires awareness, communication, and the courage to act decisively. James also recognized systemic failures that enabled Helena's predatory behavior. Agencies had provided references without verification, regulatory oversight was minimal, and reporting mechanisms were insufficient. This realization prompted him to engage with local authorities and elder care organizations, advocating for stricter background checks, transparent documentation, and mandatory reporting of anomalies. He collaborated with professionals to develop guidelines for families, combining personal vigilance with systemic safeguards. The challenge was immense, but James understood that individual action alone was insufficient. Protecting vulnerable populations requires both personal diligence and structural accountability. By addressing systemic gaps, he sought to prevent others from experiencing similar betrayals. Helena's deception, while personal in its impact, became a catalyst for broader change, illustrating the intersection of human vulnerability, institutional responsibility, and the critical importance of oversight in elder care. A key revelation emerged from the ordeal. Intuition is often the first line of defense. James recalled subtle early warnings, instances where something felt off, though there was no concrete evidence. These instincts, once dismissed as overprotectiveness, were in fact accurate indicators of risk. Families must trust gut feelings, document concerns, and address suspicions promptly. Intuition, combined with evidence and proactive action, creates a formidable safeguard against manipulation. James emphasized that vigilance is not fear-driven, it is empowerment-driven. Acting on instinct, verifying information, and maintaining awareness can prevent exploitation and preserve dignity. His story reinforces that attentive observation, skepticism balanced with empathy, and decisive intervention are essential components of elder care protection. Over time, Margaret began to rebuild trust in her environment, supported by James's unwavering commitment. They installed rigorous monitoring systems, maintained strict routines, and re-established social connections that Helena had previously undermined. Margaret's confidence returned gradually, tempered by caution but strengthened by knowledge and agency. James realized that restoring trust is a deliberate, painstaking process requiring transparency, patience, and emotional support. Their experience illustrated that vigilance, combined with compassion and structured safeguards, creates resilience. Families can rebuild safe, nurturing environments even after profound betrayal. The journey was not just about protecting against threats, it was about reclaiming dignity, autonomy, and the peace of mind that every elderly individual deserves. James's story concludes with a universal warning. Elderly loved ones are vulnerable to those who exploit trust, but knowledge, vigilance, and action can prevent harm. Families must monitor finances, document interactions, verify credentials, and maintain open communication. Every precaution is a step toward safety. Every lesson shared is a potential lifesaver. Margaret's ordeal, though harrowing, became a source of empowerment and education for others. James's advocacy, community engagement, and personal vigilance illustrate that while predators exist, proactive measures, intuition, and collective awareness can safeguard the vulnerable. This story is not just a caution, it is a blueprint for protection, resilience, and restoration. He came home unannounced and discovered the horror his mother endured, but through action, courage, and vigilance, they turned trauma into a legacy of safety, awareness, and empowerment for all families. In the end, James learned that betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it hides behind a smile you trust the most. His mother survived, but the scar of that rainy night would never fade. Now I want to hear from you. What would you have done if this was your family? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story could protect someone else. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, because the next story might just be the warning that saves your loved ones. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Turn on the notification bell for more amazing moral lessons. Stories like this one, then you won't miss it. Like and share this story to your loved ones. That will be my greatest support from you and a kindness of you to me. See you on my next video.